learned from the Uli of Mikiola and Arupa of Kanioi, Kola Posabu.
My name is Cindy Rasmussen. My roots take me back to Nuuanu, but I was here because I live in this area and I went to
Well, I'm Dominic Aki, and I've got a small ecotour company, but I'm also with Hawaii Ecotourism Association, and we're looking to see what kind of partnership we can do to help bring this site back out there.
I'm David Scott. I'm Director of the Historic Hawaii Foundation. We're a statewide nonprofit historic preservation organization, and it just completed $30,000 worth of stabilization.
I'm Susan Leva, and I'm a historical archaeologist at the Bishop Museum, and I've been doing archival historical research in Kaniakakpupu.
Aloha, I'm Lynette Cruz, presently from the Ahupua'a of Waikiki in Honolulu Valley, also with the Ahupua'a Action Alliance.
I'm Leslie Famlin with the archery people who use this area a lot for hunting and kind of keep our eyes and ears open to make sure that we don't get any damage to the forest.
We don't know this guy.
The people who've been involved in this space long time, and he was one of the people that used to come up here on the Saturday or the Sunday closest to Restoration Day and have our little mini luau over here. I remember that.
Do that again.
My name is Michael Chu. I'm a planner and landscape architect. I'm with the Friends of Nuuanu.
Well, unfortunately, is there anybody from the city here or DLNR?
Any agency folks?
Nobody? All right, we get to talk stink about them. Okay. So, for those of us who are not familiar with the site, Susan and Jim have agreed to show a real brief tour about what's here in the immediate area. If you're not aware of what they've been finding the last few years, you probably should listen because there is a lot here, more than you think. And maybe in about a half hour, real brief whirlwind type tour, and we can reassemble over here. And in the meanwhile, those of us who know what this place is like already, we got work to do. LMI. Okay?
You'll be taking them, you'll be gathering. Here, we're going to go back.
There's some water by the tree in a gallon. And there's some tangelos in that orange package. There's a trash bag over here.
Okay.
The first thing we're going to do this morning is we're going to start by shoring up the pit that's over here on this stone platform. We believe the pit was originally dug as a lime making pit to produce the mortar for the house. And then after that was no longer used for that purpose, that the pit was then lined with basalt stones to be turned into a cellar, and that there was a structure put on top of that. And the pit has been damaged in past years by somebody digging into the pit, and they've actually gone to the bottom of what was the lime making pit, which was sealed at the bottom by a thick layer of lime. And when we cleared the pit out to, identify the nature of the pit and the integrity, we discovered that all the activity on the site of all the people coming up here and stuff, it's causing the sides to cave in. So about a month ago, we came out and measured the pit, and we cut lumber with the hopes of shoring up the sides to keep the stone walls from collapsing further. So that's the first thing we're going to do this morning. Yes?
I think the thing that should be shared with the group, especially for those who haven't come here, most people are associating this with the house. And I think the work that we learned about this summer was this is a vast estate. and I hope that we'll have time to walk the perimeters. But one of the features that we kind of have to imagine is that these trees weren't here, and that changes how we perceive it. And what we will see if you walk out, and I don't know if you'll have a chance to go up to the water features. There were awai, terraces, elaborate stoneworks, water catchment systems, heiau, all of these walls. And if you look along the wall here, you'll see that there's some koa trees that are planted in a row, which suggests that they were planted while the estate was here. But through the years, the alien trees have grown in. And what is the dominant feature is the rain, in that this site was a major water system, which is no longer evident because of diversions throughout the valley. So to be able to see that back in 1847, when that huge luau was held, there was water, there was food, there was taro, everything was here. And all of that's hidden in the bushes. And that's, I think, the remarkable work that Susan and her crew did this summer.
I guess I'm on the spot. I guess since they're going to go ahead and start working on the pit, why don't we go ahead and take a quick tour, and feel free to ask questions. I know some of you have already done, like Clarence, has done a lot of research on this place and have a lot to contribute.
Still learning.
And so am I. So, feel free to jump in or ask questions or, impart any information you have. One of the things that we're really concerned about is we can go ahead and start over there with the big wall that you all walked through to get up here. That stone wall actually extends further off this Diamond Head Holly direction. The far end of the wall has actually been breached by the water board and all the piping system that they've put through up here. And so the last portion of the wall is actually collapsed. We can see where the wall originally was, but the wall is actually slid down. This portion of the wall around here to the area that you came in is still pretty intact. One of the things that we did when we were up here this summer, and I'll backtrack and tell you that Dr. James Bayman and I have been doing an archaeology field school up here for the last 2 summers. We were here for 6 weeks last summer and 5 weeks this summer. And mostly what we're focusing on is trying to document the site, map it, photograph it, record what structures are here, and help make people more aware of what's here so that decisions can be made about how better to stabilize it, preserve it, try and get it turned into a historic preserve, get a stewardship program established for the area. And one of the things we want to do is we want to get people to understand that Kaniakakpupu is not just this house and these few structures that are here. Kaniakakpupu is actually a name that has a long history prior to Kauikauli establishing his summer retreat here. There was a heiau named that. It's a landmark in the Battle of Nuuanu. It's a landmark in earlier battles. And when people think of Kaniakakpupu, they think of just this house and the area that's enclosed by this wall. And so when the site was put on the National Register and the State Historic Register, they only set aside this very small area. Okay? Kaniakakpupu, in terms of this site, is actually much larger. You walked onto the site the minute you stepped off the blacktop out at the edge of the road there. And the trail that's down there, the alwai that's down there, all the water features, all the stone walls that you can't see because they're out under the power line or they're under vegetation, they're all part of this site, but they're not on the register. So one of the things we want to do here is get people more aware of what actually represents Kaniakakpupu and get it the entire site to be either included on the register or at least into some sort of preserve where it's stabilized and maintained. Yes?
I think the alwai is.
The alwai portion is, but some of the walls that are out here. And the
We had
stone
trouble.
features-
We didn't know where the boundaries really were.
Right,
So
and that's one of the things the state still does not know. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do is when we came out last year and we came out this year, the students that came out and worked with us thought they were going to come learn archaeology. I'm going to come learn how to map. I'm going to come learn how to dig or whatever. And really they came out and learned how to clear vegetation. That's what we spent 6 weeks last year doing and 5 weeks this year doing. We cleared all the vegetation off of the house. You can't really tell right now, but we cleared all the vegetation off of all of these structures. We cut all the bamboo and all the trees going through the walls. We cleared off this structure up here, which wasn't even visible last year. There was no structure at all visible. People just knew that there was some rock out there and there was all this vegetation. And now you can actually see the outline of the structure there. And so mostly what we're trying to do is identify what features are here, make people aware that the site's much, much larger than is recorded on the National Register. But the history of the site is much longer than just Kawikeauli's summer residence here. That there was a whole system of walls and wetland taro, agriculture, and all sorts of terraces and roads and all these other features that were here long before he selected this location for his summer retreat.
Susan, didn't you find a document that said it was over 2,000 acres?
The King's Land, which in Luakaha, was 2,220 acres. So this site, or this residence, sat on top of that, within that 2,220 acres. And we know that he had an extensive system of lowy and other features out there. The other thing we want to do is look at we're hoping today is that people will come up with ideas about what kinds of things they would like to see done at the site. You know, in terms of cutting vegetation, for example, like the vegetation that's coming up through the wall on the house. We lost one wall section in the summer, about 3 days after we got done working out here. We had a heavy wind and a rain, and that corner collapsed because of the tree that was in it. Okay? This corner is still in danger. The state has never come through and cut the vegetation. We would like to see about having that vegetation cut and something done with that corner before it collapses. The area where we came up through the wall, this past week, somebody's come through and actually dismantled part of the wall. They actually moved 5 stones out of the wall. And we've set them back in. They're not in their appropriate location, but one of the things we want to do is see about getting them set back properly, and then look at some way that we can protect that area from that kind of activity occurring in the future. Whether that's to build a stone or a wood set of stairs or something that goes up over the wall so people aren't actually walking on the wall and causing it to collapse further, or whatever. What we want is people's ideas about what they think should be done at the site, and starting with the things that are very tangible that we ourselves can do out of this particular group to more long-range things. Yep.
Is it fair to say that this whole area has gone through several changes? One to maybe Kahiko days where it was mostly rock formation and maybe even grass shacks for a living area and the hayout, and then it changed over to this particular building at a time.
Right.
When this went away, because I see some remnants of some pipes that was big trenches that looked like they were trying to take water out of this area.
The water board has a series of pipes that cut through the site. One of them is back here behind the house, and if you walk over and look at that trench, you'll notice that all along the length of that trench, there's stone up in the debris pile that goes along the edge of the trench. Well, that tells you that there was stonework there that got damaged when that water pipe trench went through. And we believe that that was probably some sort of stone line outlet. This structure over here, which many people believe is a hayout, has also been damaged by water pipes being dug. And if you walk the length of that water pipe, you can see where the edge of that structure was by simply walking and finding the edge of where the stone is on the debris pile that lines either side of the trench. And you can see how much of that structure has been removed by the water board trenches.
There's even a previous history during Kalakala's reign. If you check Hawaiian Electric Company's website, you'll see they acknowledge that they were chartered by Kalakala. to provide electricity. And the first electrical generator for Honolulu was a hydroelectric plant, which Kalakaua Commission, actually Kailani cut the ribbon to start and turn the switch. And that was down by near Luakaha Country Club, the Reservoir One. And I don't know the exact configuration, but there's a big pipe back here, which the water board says may be actually from Kalakaua's time. In other words, they were trapping water. We have, DLNR has records of Kalakaua up in the upper reservoir, reforesting the area with trees and the first reservoir. In other words, they were, during Kalakaua's time, they were already collecting water and sending it down for that first electricity. So there's many layers that are in evidence right here on the property. The Board of Water Supply came into here actually probably during the 30s, because the whole land here was part of a ceded land. These were all crown lands. So they were transferred to the United States at the time of the 1898 Joint Resolution. And in about the 30s, during the Depression, President Wilson transferred the land back to the Board of Water Supply to build the reservoirs. But there's a confusion because Kalakaua may have done some reservoir work and probably got abandoned after the U.S. takeover. And then they decide during the Depression they needed make-work projects. So it was WPA projects that built the 4 reservoirs. So from the Board of Water Supply's records, they said there was major, that time they didn't have cultural impact, environmental impact, so they think that major damage to the waterways was done during that period. So there's a lot of detective work required, not just the period that Susan described, but even from 1900, just in this century too. And that's what you see. It's hard to determine, you know, because there are multiple layers of pipes here. And there's actually a proposal on the books right now to put a new pipe in to go down to the reservoir. So this is all happening, I mean, real time. So this history is really going to be important to preserve it from future use.
And that proposal, by the way, has been accepted by DNR. They are prepared to put that pipeline in. They've approved it.
It is?
Oh, yes.
DLNR did?
Yes.
But the ES hasn't been published yet. Because we're on the list, so I know that they haven't completed the public comment part.
Right.
DLNR may have signed off, but this is why we need everybody here to be aware, so that when the formal EA review process is there, we can all comment.
Because what they did is when they had the proposal, they had somebody come out and do a survey just of the area, 10 foot wide on either side of the area where the pipe was going to go. And concluded that the only thing that was going to be damaged in that process was breaching a wall that's out here, that's between the house and under the power line, between the house and the power line, it's close to the power line. And they felt, okay, that was okay. We could, you know, that's minimal damage. We can breach that wall. Well, if you walk out there now, you can see that you have this nice long wall. It's a wall that actually starts down by the trail where you came in, extends. We haven't found the end of it yet. But there's places along that wall where there are alwai, there are enclosures, there are pavements. In fact, the area that they wish to go through, there's areas up there that are pavements that may have been part of, you know, a road or some other activity up there. So there's not a clear understanding of what's here. And the first thing we want to do is get people to understand that whatever plans are made in terms of putting in piping or putting in parks or putting in, you know, whatever, that they have to know what they're impacting. So part of our purpose out here is to make people aware.
Susan, I got one question. In your post looking up there, you post coming across the road to come in here. I imagine those days there's housing doggies.
There are a couple places where there appears to be road surfaces. One of them is where you came in through the wall, that's kind of where we walked up through today through the wall. Off to the other side, there's a breach in the wall. And you can see that the wall was continuous and that somebody purposely took the stones out of there and created a path through there that's wide enough for a carriage. And we found that the surface looks like it could have easily have been a carriage road, and under the leaf litter and so forth, there appears to be some pavement. We haven't cleared it fully, so we don't know. And then this wall, this big wall here, actually continues around, makes a corner, goes all the way behind the house, keeps going, and then turns Eva and goes across the drainage. Goes all the way across the drainage. Above that wall is a second wall, and that wall, second wall, is paved. And if you follow that pavement out, it goes all the way out to the further wall that's over by the power line. It also extends this direction, so there's some evidence that there may have actually been an entry over there with a paved surface. Just want to go take a quick walk. We're not gonna
Susan, before you go,
Yes.
we have some new arrivals who are our neighbors from Nuuanu.
Would you like to
We've all
introduce
introduced
yourselves?
ourselves.
Patsy Sheehan.
Michael
Hi.
Sheehan.
We live right down here.
Mike's born and raised in the valley also.
Right. Last summer when we cleared all the vegetation, and this is a structure that many believe is Heiau Kaniakakpupu. The references that I've found so far to Heiau Kaniakakpupu, the earliest I found dates to the 1865-1870 period, and the description is very vague as to its location, and one interpretation is that it could be here associated with Kauikeauli. Another one places it over in Waiolani. And for our purposes, that's really not significant. What matters is that people believe that this is a heiau, they respect it as that, and what we wanted to do here was to uncover it, determine what kind of damage there was to it, document it. One of the things we've done is we photographed it. We tried to draw in all the stones so we could see what the structure actually looked like, even though it has been damaged, and can say a little bit about how the structure was constructed, and we know it wasn't built all at one time. We know that the structure that you're standing on down there has at least 2 pavements, most of which is not visible right now. It had a stone wall on the outside, and there were at least 2 pavements on the surface there. We know this walk that extends from the house to here is constructed on top of this lower terraced area here, and therefore is more recent in time, so that this lower structure that you're on was here first. We know that this structure here, which is also another terrace, it's rectangular, was constructed second, and then we have a third one on the top. The walls all the way around are not constructed in the same manner. These two, the Eva wall and the more diamond head wall, appear to have a series of holes in the walls, and what are large circular depressions that may have been planting pits. They could have been pits for images. We don't know yet. We just know that there's a series of pits that line these outer walls. We know that this wall on the Mackay side and the one on the Malpa side are more like a series of trenches that were dug, and then stones were lined both sides, and then they had a series of posts placed in them. The outer portion of the wall over there has been removed, and we can go look at that.
I think everyone should see the damage the place has suffered to realize how real the threat to this place is, and the potential for further damage if it's not surveyed and identified. And so why don't you come over here and you can see how real and how ignorant the agencies have been.
Thought that this was, maybe a rock-lined alwai, but if you follow the walls, and that's what these strings were, what we did is after we cut all the vegetation that was coming up through the rocks, was we put in a series of lines with string to follow out the walls. And right here at this corner, right behind him, that wall goes right up to the gentleman there with the green shirt on. And the trench, this water pipeline trench goes right through the wall there. The platform portion that they're standing on over here would have come down out through here, and the outer portion on this side has been totally removed by the ditch that goes through here. This ditch goes down and breaches the stone wall that you came through up here. You can see the stone wall comes down to that tree, and then the wall on this side has all been removed. And there's a big wooden, abandoned wooden water tank at the bottom in that area there.
What's really interesting is that this is a modern diversion of water this way, because the water was up there. And if you go back into the bushes, see how thick the vegetation is? And you go on the other side, you will see the older structures. It says the water was probably coming and flowing back on that side of the site. So they were doing something to take the water that was up there. And I'm not sure exactly, but there's a pipe still there, and that's where the Board of Water Supply that runs down by the Midfield Estate. I don't know if you noticed a little water pipe along the trail. So they've been diverting that water over to the pumping station. So there's this maze of what happened to divert the water that was once probably coming up from in the back there. You know, when they built the highway, they probably damaged all that. So the evidence shows Awai and Loi back in the bushes here. So that's one of the clues we're trying to figure out. And some of it's by looking at the scars. You got to go figure backwards, right?
Another thing is, if you look off this way, you can see that there's an open trench here that's an abandoned, I mean, it's got a modern water pipe in it. It's just not been covered over. And I think in part it's because they have to keep mending it or whatever. And then you can see all the abandoned water pipes. There was a series of Restoration Day celebrations beginning in 1843. The first one took place here with a luau, followed by other activities in Honolulu. And the second one was here in 1847. In the intervening years, the celebrations were in Honolulu. And Restoration Day was celebrated from 1843 actively until King Kamehameha, or the 5th. I don't remember his name. Who's Kamehameha the 5th? So, yeah, the two luau's that were here, the one in 1843 and 1847, one of which is mentioned on the plaque over there. What we've done is we've gone back and looked at trying to find the earliest descriptions, first-hand accounts of people who attended those luau. And one of the things that we've discovered is that one of the descriptions says that, first off, the 1843 luau was very, very different in nature than the 1847 luau. And one of the descriptions tells us where the people sat and ate during the luau. Okay? In the 1847 luau, the foreigners ate in a wooden structure, which we believe might have been placed on top of this structure here, based on the modifications that we have. The king and other members of the Native Hawaiian community that attended ate at long tables that were 20 rods long. Okay, they were set on the ground, basically mats on leaves on the ground, and there also were 2 tea leaf lanai structures that were constructed. The description says that the tables, the 3 tables, 40 rods long, or sorry, 3 tables, 20 rods long, were laid out 40 rods from the house. Okay, so if we come out from the house 40 rods, we would be out this direction a little over 350 feet. Okay, That means that while we're out here looking at this open trench area with pipes and we don't see any stone structures, it doesn't mean that this area has no significance, because it means this is where the luau would have occurred. It would have been out here, and remember the trees weren't here, with minor exceptions. This would have been a large open area. It is where the traditional games would have occurred. It is where the luau would have occurred.
And where else would you put 10,000 people?
Right. Yeah, the 10,000, the seating actually based on the length of the tables, which were 20 rods long, assuming you had people sitting across from each other and at the end. There probably were actually maybe 3,000 people actually sat down to the luau. The 10,000 or 12,000 people would have included everybody who came up in the processions and lined the poly and so forth. But either way, you still would have had a minimum of 3,000 people up here for the luau, actively participating in that, and you have to put them someplace. And unfortunately, it's the same place that they're putting in pipes without a recognition of what they're impacting. The fact that there is no stone structure there doesn't mean that place is not important. So what we want to do is try and, like I say, take all the historical information we can find, all of the oral history, the oral traditions, all the information, and piece it together so that we have a better understanding of what was here and how it was laid out, so that we can have a bigger impact when it comes to telling the State Historic Preservation Office or Department of Land and Natural Resources and so forth, what they're actually impacting by the activities that they're doing out here or the things they're failing to do out here in terms of protecting.
Do we have the removal of that banyan tree over there on the things to do list yet?
Nope.
I noticed some of the roots are going down here past through our heiau area.
Yeah, one of the things we need to look at is putting together some sort of plan in terms of cutting vegetation. What vegetation do we want to cut? What argument can we make as to why that vegetation should be cut, and what impacts it will have? If we cut the vegetation here, how will that affect water runoff, for example, and will that erode the structure more? And we have to deal with that, but we need to be able to say, hey, all these trees, they're pulling the rocks apart, they're pulling the walls apart. We kind of took our own liberties when we were out here, figuring nobody's going to care that we cut bamboo because it's so prolific, and it certainly wasn't here at the time. So what we did is we actually cut all the bamboo and all the trees that go up through the wall. That's one of the things we did here. We cut all the small vegetation here. We didn't cut any of the big trees because we didn't have the crew to haul them off. But we've been trying to actively go around and cut vegetation that's actually currently damaging structures. But we need to make a list that says we need to remove this.
15 years ago, there was no bamboo on this side of the walls.
Yeah. Yeah, the koa trees that are here along the wall may date to Kalakawa's time, because he did start the first reforestation, which is kind of a misnomer, but he started the first forestation project up here. And all these others all date after that, here in the 1910s, 1920s, and so forth.
You might have answered it, but what jurisdiction does the Board of Water Supply have?
The Board of Water Supply, I believe, has a memorandum of agreement, and they do whatever they do as far as putting in piping and stuff through here. I don't know if it's an easement or what, but they have the authority to do that.
Anywhere and everywhere that there's a pipe broken?
No, they have. Well, they repair
pipes break a lot.
Yeah, I don't know that much about the Board of Water Supply. I haven't got into that aspect that much yet. But they do repair the pipes. They do have concerns about being able to supply more water to Honolulu and the need for more pipes and so forth. And obviously we're looking at, yes, people in Honolulu need water. I live there, so I guess I need water. But, you know, trying to do it in a way that's not damaging this site.
I don't know that they're taking any water out of here for Honolulu.
No, it's not. The pump water has been totally because of the...
Not
so where does this water go?
Out to the ocean. It comes under coastal
Nuuanu
management.
Oh.
But most of Honolulu's water
It's water.
is artesian.
Oh dear.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotta be quiet.
But it's got to come through pipes.
Well, it's all, you know, recharged to the ground and everything. But I don't know if they've stopped it, but up to a point,
Yeah, they have.
Luakaha's water was surface.
So the dam was built by an executive order, I believe by McKinley, and nobody wants to repair the dam, so they're passing the buck right now, and they want to restore this, build a park here, parking lot there, but nobody wants to fix the structure. It's not fit for a 100-year flood, if you have seen the dam.
Yes.
And
No, it's not.
the people downstream are in danger, but it seems nobody wants to do anything until something happens. And as far as this area goes, there are exactly 3 of us here that know that this area goes beyond the river. There's a stone footpath that crosses the river. And there's a lot of things on this side of the highway that I think has been totally forgotten. You know, that few people have seen.
Yeah. And there's stonework on the other side of the highway too.
Yeah. There's a big hula stage up there on, I believe it's Makuku.
And so, I mean, part of it is trying to get people to understand that all these things are connected. But that's a really big undertaking.
Well, it's been so overgrown that nobody can, you can't see it unless you know it's there. You walk right over it or you walk right past it and you don't know it's there. And it's kind of sad because a lot of these species that have overgrown everything, covered everything up, is alien.
Yes. Okay. Steve says let's move
I
on.
really want them to see the water features.
Okay.
When you think 10,000 people, how many days they probably spent carrying? You can sense the contour, yeah, down here. It dips down. I don't think we're not going to go through there. We'll go through here, or
Whichever.
which way is easier? I never know. Can you go? Can they go through
Let's
there?
go that way.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at this structure, the water would have run that direction, and if you notice, the structure's not level. It actually would have facilitated water runoff.
You see the water coming from this side. It's sloping that way. Water's coming from here. Back in here.
And the description, it says that the tables were laid out 40 rods.
Everybody come.
Looks like it might have been a wooden one.
No, I think it was a
Might have been either Kalakaua or could have been water supply.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it could have been wood with, yeah, material-wise, yeah, it could have been wood with cable strapping. Yeah.
But to me, this kind of stuff is proof of how much water was here once. Because it came through here. Because it's big. This is a very, what's the size?
About 2 feet.
Huh?
24 inch.
That's a lot of water. And our suspicion is that that's what may have been Kalakaua first put it in there to drive that first hydroelectric plant. Because remember, he got electricity, he had the first electricity at Iolani Palace. That was a coal-fired generator. But a few years later, he had a hydroelectric plant. So it probably came through here. But see, that piece of the record is not complete yet.
I think there's an executive order dating to the late 1800s, 1889, 1890s period, that sets aside Kaniakakpupu and protects it
As a water
as a area that not to be impacted by the water features. But obviously their idea was, you know, that one little 1 acre. Okay, well, go ahead.
They cut. They're just cutting bamboo where it was on the walls. I don't know.
Okay. So
Well, can we go through there and go back?
sure.
Let's go through here real quick.
Watch your step. That fucker's pretty sharp. Watch your step with the ground, like keep it busy, you know,
agriculture. And then we have a small wall here that all the water coming down here would have catch at the edge of this stone wall. And there in the middle here we have a drainage area that would have carried the water over the wall and down into the drainage on the other side. Okay? If you look back here, you can see all this stone that's been displaced by the waterboard ditch. And that stone is either part of a road surface that was out there, or it may be part of a rock-lined alwide. We haven't done any clearing there, so this is the extent of our clearing. This was done earlier this week by some volunteers from Victoria Ward Center. They came out for United Way, came out and did a day in service, and they cut all of this vegetation. So this is a newly cleared wall here, and the wall that we came through on the other side of the site when we came out is actually ends down here at the bottom of this drainage. You can see on this side, yeah, the wall's about 4 feet high. On this side, no. I don't think, yeah, it's been filled in some, but I don't think it was near as high. And if you continued out that direction, this wall here ends right here at the corner of the drainage. But if you continue out that direction, you will get the other big wall that extends beyond the side. And there's pavements and all sorts of other features out there.
This could be a roadway also?
Yeah, this could be part of the roadway, as could that area with the drain, the water pipe going through, where all the stone is. And there's actually 2 walls here. We're standing on the upper wall, and the lower wall is down there, and that goes all the way across the drainage. Yeah. And this wall here extends all the way back around the side. That's the wall we came in on, that we crossed when we came up here. So this is actually in good shape. This actually, if we were to remove the upper sediment on here, you'd find that this was probably paved.
I think this might be part of
That
was one of the
yes.
guesses you had. Yep.
It's one of our guesses. And we went out there earlier this week and we actually found a nice big pavement.
Oh, really?
Susan, on that side of the wall, did you think that was all backfilled too?
This wall, no, I think the wall here was just built as a retaining structure to define the edge of the drainage and to define the surface.
But around from the front, that looks all backfilled.
Style.
This side is all wrong.
And unfortunately, when they cleared this week, which was a really nice thing, they kind of got this end of the pile on top of the lower wall, so we'll end up moving that. But there is another wall down here. Okay, go.
Eating.
All right.
Eating. Someone there too.
Be on this side. Over on my
A drainage, like a plug for the mountain. A little. My mom and dad today. Next time we go, what did our shirt go?
One of the archer guys asked us to pick the dog out, so
Oh, okay.
we'll just go meet him back at the truck.
to live out over here.
Oh, yes, yes. And then this small structure here is a detached kitchen.
Yeah.
Have you guys found any artifacts?
Ceramics.
Okay, I was gonna ask you.
Ceramic glass.
Blue and white
Yeah, we
pattern.
have, yeah, we have,
Pattern.
they're all English, English, I think we maybe have Chinese.
I think we're okay.
Yeah, it's a twin sister, and it would have to be next to a structure over the sister because you need the water. Unfortunately, it's also flat, so because we went out with us this week, I noticed that the stones on the top, so it's flat.
Does anybody have to leave early?
All the hands.
Okay, all you guys gotta leave early. Speak up.
We don't have a plan. We called people together today so that we could jointly develop one, rather than putting something out and then having you agree to it. We don't have a plan, but we know what we want. I can say I know what I want, not what we want. These places are significant to me personally, to my history, the history of our nation that I claim. These places are important to me, and I would like to see them living. I want them to have life. So it's not an artifact. It's not something that we just look at it. That's the way it was. I want it to have life, and that's why I'm here. And I'm not sure why you're here. If you guys want to share what you think is important for us to do, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go. I like go.
Okay. I think that this valley has a significant history behind it. And it once brought the Hawaiian Kingdom together. And with the right exposure, the right people get involved, I think we can get together again. I think it'll bring us back together again.
I haven't been up here in about 7 years. I brought Dr. Emery up here in '79. I never saw him ever cry before. It was pretty neat. He sat inside there, right inside the wall, and had lunch with us. And this place has meant a lot to me. By that meeting that we had that day, actually somebody went out and said something, and I think this is where this has all come from. I even wanted to name my child after this place. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna contribute, but what I see right now is really nice. I see a lot more than I saw. But remember, there's more. There's feelings here and stuff like that that we gotta look at too, not just, there's a lot of history, and I'm part Hawaiian. I don't look it too much, but I mean, this is, my family comes from Nuuanu. So I want to see if I can help to make sure it goes in the correct way that will benefit everybody and Kaniakakpupu.
We're just taking people's comments if they want to share before we move into what we're going to do.
I'm just brainstorming here. I think that it would be nice if we could work together and like a big family, kind of make it look like how it used to look. You know, something that we could all share together.
So maybe a partial restoration, and then maybe even later on the line, like brainstorming way ahead, maybe full restoration. Would that be something that could be done here?
Short term, long term.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, why I got involved here, it's something hard to explain. The first time I was up here, I don't know how many years ago,
responsible to get me to man over there. But you know, knowing the man is a thing. He was brought up around Kuahai too. Pu'ukola, that's the backside of Pu'ukola. And that's where I'm involved. But my family is from Oahu also. The first time I came up here, I knew that this is something that we gotta do. And for me, I want to commit of getting all the trees down. I'll commit myself to that on a short term. And we need to organize as a group so we'll be able to go out and seek funds. I think that's we need to do. And we need to have some short-term plans in place. I think short-term is around that really trying to save the walls or make some decisions as to what wall we're going to take down and put back and how we're going to do it. How much money it would cost, or if we can find volunteers. Yeah, that thing. I'm committed to do that. And I think down the road, short term again, we can make people aware. I don't want to say too much, but we're looking at December, the day that Kawikioli died. And if you all know, the palace ground is where someplace in the palace ground he died. So I would like to see some honor on that day done in behalf of Kawikioli. The front gate is his name. So I'm kind of looking and talking to people, just like the Battle of Nuuanu. It was just an idea, and then one day I found myself 2 o'clock in the morning jumping off the Makiki and walking back to the summit, just so I know how much time that can take. So we know how much, when we can start and when we go in, how much ceremony we can. So I have no problem about even doing something to that effect up here, because it's only about 4 miles from here to the palace. But I think we need to bring awareness to this place, to the tourists and everything. Like, this place is sacred to us. And I think that can happen in December, short term. But the long term, we need to get plans in place, and let's do it.
Can I throw a little bit more long-term perspective to you? Okay. The Ili of Luakaha is what we're really concerned about. The Ili of Luakaha is a fairly large piece of property. It goes all the way from the cliffs of the Pali all the way down to Midkiff Estate, and I believe it goes from wall to wall. It encompasses something like 2,100 acres. And all of this land was productive land. It was crown land. It was agricultural land. It was one of the bread baskets of the kingdom. The lo'i are here. The fields are here. The awai are here. The water is here. This place has the potential to again be the bread basket of the kingdom. Right now it's just being overgrown. Nothing's happening with it. But perhaps that's one of the things that we could address.
If I may, I just like to make just one more short statement. You know, Kawikioli, when he became king, he gave us our constitutional government. You know, he gave some of his powers to the people by way of the legislative body and the council of chiefs and him. By that, he relinquished some of his powers. Like the father was an absolute ruler and the brother. But you know, that's the start of our kingdom that everybody's talking about. And all our treaties started with him. So, you know, if you look back on history, you can appreciate what this man done. And coming up here, it was just a relief from all that pressure down there.
No, I wanted to say in terms of what Mel just mentioned, something that struck me this week. I don't know if any of you have been tracking the 2 recent Supreme Court decisions. August 22nd, they came out on the decision on the Waihole ditch case. In effect, the Supreme Court said that the Water Commission had to look at restoration of the streams and the water And in that case, 30 pages, you know where the court went with the argument? It went to the fact that there was a kingdom, and in 1840 there was a constitution which Kauikeauli held the water in trust for the people in common. So this man that built this house was also acknowledged by the state Supreme Court as the man who, as Mel said, divided his absolute power to the people. And with that were all of the Aupua tenant rights, the rights to the water. 1842 they passed this law on the distribution of water. 1848 was it? The Land Commission Awards, the Kuleana Awards came out. The Supreme Court last week on the 11th, I think, came out with another ruling on a dispute in Kaupulehu on the Big Island, where a developer was going to develop some land, and the Native Hawaiians there said the developer did not take into account their rights to access the land for cultural practices. And the court ruled in no uncertain terms that the developer had to take into account those traditional practices. So what Darren's mentioning, the evidence is here of traditional customary practice. It's in the rocks, it's in the owai, it's in the water. So one of the goals, I think, using these recent rulings by the High Court of the state, it's clearly saying the state has a duty to preserve traditional Hawaiian cultural practice. That's been challenged numerous times, and the court every time keeps coming up. So it's not just about being Native Hawaiian. If you're a citizen of the state, we have a duty. We made a constitutional compact, 1978, to preserve Hawaiian culture because it's important for all of us. This site, to me, after I read those decisions, and I thought about what's potential here, I think Barron captured it. I think Mel's capturing it. But I think all of us, even those who are, especially those who are not Hawaiian, need to think about the obligation we all have to preserve a site like this. It's not just because it's for Native Hawaiians, but we have a duty. The whole community has a duty to preserve Hawaiian culture. So I think with that reading in mind, there's also leveraging for funding, because it's saying, as we've seen the evidence, the state, the government has not put money down to preserve the culture. But I think if the people say, look, and that's why I'm glad some of the people from the Friends of Nuuanu Vision Team, there's some projects going on where money from the city, money from several sources can help do restoration. So I think that perspective for me was really important to include in whatever kind of plan we do, that this thing's going to need funds, and we need to say the state has to put up, the county has to put up.
Yeah, excuse me for talking. This is my first trip here. I've never been here before. I came because Mel called, and I usually go when he calls for us to come. Coming here, there's a lot of everything what you folks talk about. Just all of you being here is one thing that I'd like to let you know that I really appreciate all of you here, because it means you folks care about what's happening. As I walk around, there's things that come to vision to me, just the way I feel. I'm not an expert in the field, but I just see things. I see that this was exactly what he's saying, that this was a real thriving community at one time. Prior to the building of this particular building, there was really a lot of people living here and was able to sustain themselves because there was water and rich fields for them to do their agriculture. So there was a thriving community here. And I see this particular building coming in at a later time in the society. And because he came here, I think there was a lot of Aleutans lived up in here. So this was all along the same line. He came and lived here because there was a rich area that could sustain. That's the only reason I feel he could have done that luau with that amount of people, because there was so much subsistence here for him to do that. And you know, I just get so amazed when I look at a lot of things. I have different views on when I see different rock piles. You know, I think there was a holly there, a large holly. And if you look at the path, it was to support this holly. But that holly at one time was a village where it took care of people. When this came, it became part of that. That's just my opinion. The other thing is, I'd like to mention is, in our group, our leader is also battling restoration of another area, which is called Moku'ula, which is in Lahaina. And I look at this group and what you're trying to do, and I look at that other group, what they're trying to do, they got a baseball field on top of the ahu. That's where they're starting. They're trying to get the baseball field out. They're trying to get the area restored. And that's what they got to put up with. And actually, you don't have that here. You're farther ahead as far as I'm concerned. One is you got the people together, and the place haven't really been damaged that much.
I was just talking to Susan earlier. I asked her, well, have you guys found Boki's house yet? Or do you know where Boki's house was at?
No.
And he was, you know, for those who don't know, he was the governor of Oahu. And Kaui Keauli lived part of his youth with him. And then she tells me that after that, there was another governor who lived up here. So some of these guys did indeed live up here.
Just to bring it down to a more practical thing, one of the things we talked about as we were walking around was the possibility of putting up a temporary structure, a house here, for us to store our equipment, assuming that we're going to be doing all of the work that needs to be done, but also for someone to possibly be here on site to act as kahu, to be a protector, because we don't want people to come up here and get hurt. Some of the excavations, that's one thing, but the other thing is to not come up here without acknowledging what this place is and the protocols that come along with it. So, you know, at a real practical level, it's something that we might want to think about, is putting up a structure, a temporary structure, or a permanent one.
I've been coming up here for 5 years now. I've seen the gradual degradation of this structure here, and be able to rebuild this structure with any kind of validity, or rebuild a structure that has already been degraded. But perhaps we can, you know, preserve the site from further desecration or decline that's preventable. But mainly, I think that we should be able to preserve the site in terms of recognition as to what it is, the extent of what it is, and the meaning that it has. And so I don't know about building a structure here and doing excavation or whatever. I think that the first goal that we must attain is to have the site in its entirety recognized.
Right now, the only place that has really recognition is the area underneath the house, in the immediate vicinity of the house. And right now, we're not even clear about who has administrative power over it. This whole area is apparently controlled by forestry, but that particular area is supposedly a DLNR. And even then, they're not sure. In terms of like cutting down a tree, they're not even sure who is authorized to do it. So one of the higher priorities is, yes, changing the status of this whole area away from a hodgepodge of forestry and DLNR to historic preserve. And when you come down to it, actually, the whole Nuuanu is quite historic, and the waterways too. We have people here who are here speaking for Kapena Falls, and just part of the waterway. You know, one argument could be made that the whole district could be declared a historic district, but that's for something else. So we could think about that a little bit.
I think one of the things that will help in moving ahead harmoniously is to document, continue to do what Susan and Jim have been doing, because if you can take a map and put the structures on the map and you know where things are, then when you do simple tasks like clearing the bamboo, you can better guide people as to where they should put the bamboo that's cut down, that kind of thing, so that we're all working together in a way that is real productive. And then once you document, then right now the only part that can be declared historic are those areas that have been documented. So you have to go through a documentation process. And I think where Barron would like this to go is to have the area as a preserve, not necessarily a structure. And so that type of documentation can help validate that the area is what needs to be preserved.
I've spoken to some previous former OHA trustees because they derive portions of their revenue from the Crown lands, which is what this is part of, and a pretty important part of it. And I'm thinking that as Crown lands, there's an organization that's starting up that may be the vehicle that can assist in that, and it's called the Mo'opuna o Kamehameha. These are the people that can claim lineal descent from the 7 wives that King Kamehameha had living issue from, and they may have the most legitimate claim to these Crown lands here, and perhaps that organization does not really need to interact with the state perhaps, and can go directly to OHA. And OHA, and I've also talked before, I live in the area here, we talked about using some of the prisoners from the correctional facility. They work everywhere else around here. Maybe it can be done without funding clearing this area. We could all have a sort of a renaissance, which is what this gathering was all those hundreds of years ago, and perhaps all the Hawaiians, White Hawaiians and Hawaiian at heart can come up with chainsaws and just do it and clean it up. Because if we ask the state, it'll probably take 112 years for them to figure out who's in charge, but Nolan George, his family's lived here all his life, caretakers of Anaika Malama, you know, the summer palace. That's one summer palace. This was the other summer palace that we know. Yabne Pakiawai down below there used to service 1,000 lohis and punui and lower Nuuanu. So the history is already here. Everybody knows what the history is. It's just a matter of getting the right people together and getting going. Seems like you've got a good nucleus here. Somehow we need to exchange names, and I think, Nolan, you should start off as being the correlating person. Huh?
I'll do whatever I can. We have
Are we taking names?
We have a great love for this area. I think the goal, part of the goal should be to seek some kind of fairness. For years, it's just been neglected to such a bad state, and it's pathetic how the state can just get away with this. So maybe they're busy, maybe they're unfunded or whatever, but by everybody getting together, we can do a lot.
And try to get them all to the table to find out who does have the authority, and let them commit to, you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to do that. And because they can run you around, and they have all the time and the money, and you know, that frustrates a group like this. It's trying to do something. And so maybe one of the first things is to sit down with Board of Water Supply. I mean, we live close by, and the Board of Water Supply seems to feel like they have a lot of authority. Whether they do or not, I'm not sure, but they come up and dig up pipes and put in new pipes without seeming to check with anybody.
Yeah, they were going to do that. They were going to pass, right through that area where the road was, and we kind of talked them out of it. But, we've been doing a little bit early legwork, working with DLNR, and we have a tentative understanding with them. Their understanding is that they want to set up a stewardship program for this place. And we need to have some kind of an organization, and we need to have some kind of a plan. But they sounded favorable. We could come up with a stewardship organization, because basically DNR is not particularly interested in this place at all. And they would prefer not to have anything to do with this place at all. They have tentatively agreed to a change in status of at least this immediate area from forest reserve to a cultural preserve. But we need to have some kind of an organizational structure. We need to have a plan on paper.
Actually, that's why the meeting was called today, was to get enough people to come up who were interested enough in forming an organization that can be that entity for this site, this whole area, or whatever our designation will be later. And we're sending around a sign-in sheet for people, because we already know that people, as they're walking around, have stated quite clearly what things they would like to do and which areas they would like to take care of. So I think that can kind of like fall out naturally. Whatever your interest is, depending on what your training is, you'll want to do certain things and not other things.
Is there roughly so many acres that you know you're dealing with? I mean, if you take the bigger outside wall, how many acres? Do you have any idea?
The Ili of Luakaha is 2,100 acres.
Well, but
this, we don't know.
One of the things that Graham mentioned, the historic district, there are provisions for a historic district, and we're thinking if, again, you have to take them in steps, like form an organization, but that could be a goal, would be to claim, on paper at least, based on the old map, that we would want to identify the extent of this 2,100 acres. So, important thing would be to, for example, state your goal. If you just say Kaniakakpupu or you say Luakaha, might make a difference in terms of the territorial jurisdiction. So, but that's, see, the group has to have enough people to support that vision. But I think it can be done in terms of principle, so that you would then have the state and then, you know, people like Susan and Jim who have the skills to actually survey. So you'd in effect be putting the state on notice that there is a group that would like to identify, I mean, on a map, the full extent of that historic place. There are historic maps that you can use, but the landscapes have changed, so you'd have to go and check the boundaries again. But I think that's the kind of goal you could set out.
We have had a few previous meetings, and this is the map of Luakaha. If anybody wants one, I have a limited number of them.
But we also have a sign-in sheet, so if anybody wants one, you can just let us know and check it out and we'll mail it to you. I want to ask Clarence, because Clarence was involved before, and just in terms of having an entity be able to speak on behalf of this place. We don't have a name for an entity, but there was a group before.
It was called this.
It was called that right there. See, I want that t-shirt.
What happened?
Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Declare it a historical relic.
No, it's just that some time ago,
when?
15, 20 years ago, some of us had the same feelings that you have here now, except that this place was less well known at that time, and it was still in the forest reserve, water reserve, and it was actually illegal to come up here. And people decided that they were going to come up here anyway, and we came up here and did our thing, and we decided that it had to be on one of the registers or something. It had to be protected. That there are these big ironwood trees going out of the walls, at least 3 big ones. I don't know, there's part of one over here in this corner, but there's one in this corner, one in the other corner, and I think one in that far corner. And then these trees had to come out somehow or other, except that they were also holding the walls together. So we got whatever people who were interested in it to come up here and join the crowd, so to speak, and then we started doing some cultural, historic things like I talked about earlier. We did these mini luau's up here for a number of years around Restoration Day time, and one time we planted over 100 coal trees over there, just on this side of the river, that one area there. But the shade in here makes it really difficult to grow trees. But I personally have been waiting for a day sometime in the future when we can get enough people to make a difference up here, and this may be the day, or you know, the time, the day, but this is one of those days that I was dreaming about, so I'm really thrilled.
You got a name?
Huh?
Did you have a name? It was a Malamo Kaniakakpupu.
Yeah, that's what we called it. This shirt, we had a, let's see, what year was it? 86. We sponsored a concert at the Waikiki Shell during Aloha Week as sort of a fundraiser. And we had a whole bunch of entertainers who came and donated their time. We had a real great time. I had Rocky Jensen design the shirt, and we have the rights to the use of the shirt. It belongs to us. And if, you know, whatever the name of this organization, if you want the shirt, the design, whatever, you can have it. You can use it, whatever, all of that.
Is anybody left from your original organization that would be interested in, you're here again, anybody else?
Well, probably. You know, well, people come and go. And like, one of my problems is that I live on the Big Island now, and so it's real difficult for me to come up here too often, but just happened to make it this weekend. But when people, it seems to me that when people hear the story about this place, and they come up here, and they feel the spirit of this place, and there is a spirit up here. At least it's nice if you can feel that spirit. You know, you almost get hooked automatically. And then when you look around and you see all these foreign trees and all the problems they're causing on all this, you know, people are willing to come up here and spend, you know, a day, a month, a day, a year, the day, whatever, and we get enough people and get some work done up here, some good stuff.
Okay, can you remember some of the names of the charter members of that organization? Maybe we can contact them and get them.
Actually, there weren't that many. You know, just a handful. But, you know, we had Marion Kelly up here, Muriel Cito, bunch of this Cooney. Just some of those kinds of people.
So I think we should form committees on this, and let's just take it, instead of the talking phase, let's start implementing, and different people will take responsibility for different areas, and your area of expertise or where you are best skilled, then we can start approaching it. Maybe people who are skilled in grant writing can start maybe proposing grants, and other people who are involved with legislation maybe start to try and put these papers in motion to acquire this as historic preservation. Other people that are good with the land and good with clearing can form a committee and call these people to help come up. Maybe we can get some journeymen to come up here, and but we gotta take it one more step further now and start getting some names and have some commitment and have people go out into their areas and let their people know, and then form subcommittees and then answer to the main committee and start doing it.
The reason I asked about the name and what you did was because I wanted to suggest if that was something that we would, as a group, be willing to take. And you already gave it to us. Can we use that name? And then can that name also be our mission?
Sure. There's a lot in the name.
Because the name, Malama Kaniakakpupu, can also be our mission. That's what we're here to do. Now,
what's the money with the name, that organization?
Is there any money with it? Any leftovers?
We might be able to find a couple hundred, but not much more than that.
And then also, I mean, people who are good with organizing and doing like a promotion, we could do that too. People that are good with PR can maybe start letting some media people know, and maybe we could have more fundraisers and get money behind it and form maybe a 501 group or something, non-profit group.
Okay, so before we go any further, is there any objection for us as a group taking that name, Malama Kaniakakpupu?
Yeah, I would raise a perspective. The name can limit how people look at it. Yeah. Today, I would say we need to look at Ahupua'a because of the fact that even I think in the professional field, it is known that you cannot interpret a site or a feature without knowing how it's connected to the landscape. You cannot say Kaniakakpupu and in people's mind it's a house because the evidence says the house wasn't called Kaniakakpupu, it's the Aina. The place was called Kaniakakpupu, not the house. So if you use the name Kaniakakpupu, there has to be a description attached to it to make sure that people understand it's connected to this Aina. It's part of Luakaha. Luakaha is in Ili in the Ahupua'a of Honolulu. And the features that are evident here is that I put it in those terms. I'm a one track about water. You know, Kauikeaoli lived here because he crafted the water rights for all the people for the whole kingdom. And it's evident to me that it was, as was pointed out earlier, there was a community here that had been managing water from probably prehistoric time. So I would just say we should think about how that name will convey the mission. I mean, I think people will pick up Kaniakakpupu, the hale, but will they pick up the whole ahupua'a?
I agree.
And how you put it in, maybe it's a mission. Maybe the name can do it in a mission, or maybe you want a name that includes, I don't know, that's my...
Stephen, that brings up a good point, and if I could, as I said, there are a few of us here from the Friends of Nuuanu, and you know, we battled over that in the beginning, and it's possible that a lot of our actions may or may not have been misinterpreted because of the name. Originally, there was a small handful of residents that had the idea that, you know, we knew that with, you know, the Department of Land and Natural Resources and the county people not knowing where the management funding was going to come from, everybody wanted to kind of wash their hands, and the residents who attended some of the neighborhood board meetings and became aware of this gathered together, and that was our beginning. And we've been struggling with, well, how big do you talk about it? Because we're talking like, you know, like huge projects, and our original intent was to gather enough support, and we didn't, by our current name, Friends of Nuuanu Reservoir, we weren't limiting there because we were aware of all of the artifacts and different things that lie in this region. And so we have already begun the process, you know, like I said, from our own humble beginnings. We've already done the incorporation steps and the, you know, all the other stuff, and we have started with gathering funding, and we've been trying to, you know, we've even worked with consultants so that we can figure out exactly, you know, what kind of plan can come out, because we all do want to preserve the area, but how do we preserve it? I mean, that's a big question, because there has to be a lot of organization and planning and preserving, because you can't just go ahead and preserve. So we have been talking, you know, as I said, we've worked with consultants already who have been trying to hook up with all the entities that have the knowledge that we need, and so we sort of have been in existence, but we don't, like I said, we've done small little bits of, I wouldn't call it public relations, because in some cases it turned out to be something other than relation. but you know, we have been concerned with where the funding is going to come from, and most of our discussions have been in just to gather funding, and we really, you know, in gathering funding, there's also responsibility included with that, because in gathering the funding, we have to identify a definite scope of the project that we're looking to fund. So we have been gathering, and it's kind of nice for us, you know, we've been standing on the side watching for a while, because we've been trying to, you know, gather more information and gather support, because we know that everything here is valuable. And I said, our efforts started from a handful of the residents of Nuuanu that said, you know, we want to see it preserved because we know that it's here.
So it might be a good idea for us just to piggyback on you guys right now, since you already have that status.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say piggyback, but I think if we have more heads together, you know, widening the scope, because we have no plans. We're still trying to figure out how the plans are going to be laid out. And I think with more organizations coming in, it's much easier to lay out a feasible plan. You know, it's something that we can all hold on to and agree with. Yeah.
One of the traditional forms that might be considered to be a hui model, which would be the various groups all kind of agreeing to work on a common vision, so that, you know, historically the groups that were here, new groups forming. Are anybody here from the Kapena Falls group? Some of them were going to come in today. They were invited anyway. But I know they're working down below, and my communication to them was they were concerned about preserving the petroglyphs down there and so forth. But I said, but Kapena Falls connected because of the stream. And so there was interest in the larger ahupua'a. But even that's a problem, because we're talking, we use the term Nuuanu, but the ahupua'a was Honolulu. And that includes Alewa and Paoa too. But it may be something worth thinking, because Honolulu includes the harbor. And, you know, So it's, and I'm not trying to make the thing so big as impossible, but I think Barron was kind of kicking around the idea. What would happen if the Alpha of Honolulu were declared a historic district, including from the Poly right down to the palace grounds, all of that tied into its historical setting, say set at the time it was recorded at the Mahila, 1848, right after the big thing, you know. So there's so much history right at that time frame that could be captured, because at least it's documented, and that becomes the larger mission with groups taking on different parts of it. That's the reason I think thinking the name would be important.
I think this is a very sensitive issue because it doesn't just pertain to artifacts. We have indigenous plants.
Right.
We have tree snails that are still here. And how do we preserve it? You know, if we're going to have, you know, my point is there a hidden agenda? Are we going to restore it and have tourists up here? Because if we do, people transmit seeds by walking around, you know, and if we're going to introduce more alien species, it'll devastate the indigenous plants that are left, which are almost gone. You know, very sensitive area.
No, I just feel like throwing my 2 cents. For me, you know, I will get no trouble with his name for the simple fact that the essence of Waimea is over here. You know, and then whatever group is working out there, we can work together with them. But for me, I like to see some action. And if we're going to stall around, go do research again, I'm gonna be out of here. You know, because I've been coming kind of long, and I like to see something done over there. And you know, we need to organize now and move on, because there's plenty of help outside there, and then you know we can get help. And if everybody is doing it, we can get them in a mission statement and work together.
I second with the name. I think I was brought here because of the house mainly. I knew that there were other things outside, that it did extend farther back into the forest and onto the other side. However, I feel that to have a starting point, that this is where we're all starting. And then from here, we will grow to the other areas. And I think that it pretty much covers why we all started.
I got to defend the name Kaniakakpupu. Naturally. Like Mel, well, maybe I'll even go further than that. Yes, there are lots of things going on here, but, you know, I don't know what all these stones here meant before this building was built. Although, you know, we don't know where it came, before or after, mostly before. How long before? We don't know that. Agricultural, yeah, there are a lot of agricultural things going on. But was it originally an agricultural area, or was it an area where people went for, you know, to hide from the heat of the summer in Honolulu? But more important, I have a relationship with this man, Kauikeauli, and whether for good or bad, he's been a very important person in my life for what he did. As Lynette was mentioning earlier, well, other people have too, that he was very significant in transitioning from ancient Hawaii to this modern Hawaii, and a lot of the things that like Stephen said, a lot of things that happened that were very significant happened when he was the king, including the loss of Hawaiian sovereignty and the restoration of that sovereignty. And that sovereignty to me is very important, as a lot of
Hawaiians, Kanaka Maoli, this very day are pondering the subject of sovereignty and independence and all those kinds of things. And I don't think that leaves out all of the people who are not Hawaiian, because I think they're all part of this picture too. And then, what will you call this? Some kind of Malama Luakaha, or Malama Nuuanu? Kaniakakpupu is a you know, really catchy name. It's sexy. And you hear the stories about the singing snails and all that kind of stuff. And to me, you know, it's really great, but I'll share this much with you and let you guys decide.
Well, you can join any organization you want.
I think that Malama Kaniakakpupu would be a good name to keep. It's true that Kaniakakpupu wasn't a name that was used at the time that Keaoli was here, but this site has recognition now within the community because of the name that's attached to it, and good or bad. And that name is attached to it on the National Register, it's attached to it on the State Register, it's familiar to all the state and county agencies and on down the line. I think that in order to avoid confusion and bringing all those people back on board now when you call it, you know, you call it something else, that we should get beyond just the name and start focusing on what we really need, what we're really here to do and the things that we want to accomplish. And by sticking to the name that has Kaniakakpupu in it, will get us past that. We already have name recognition with that, and we can move forward.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is intending to drop the name Kaniakakpupu, but I think part of the intention is to like put a little slash and add something on, because there's more than just Kaniakakpupu. So the name, nobody's saying drop the name, okay, but maybe add a little bit more on.
My comments were that even if you keep the name, which is for all the reasons, because it's on the map, it's all that, is that we make sure as a group that we can see the larger scope.
The mission
and in the
statement,
mission,
in the mission
and
statement
in
we
that.
can say,
So,
you know, we want to
so
address
that's
the whole Ili of Luakaha or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And so, you know, you can cover all.
Okay, good. Is that something that we can support then? Can we say something like we support the name of our Guti Malama Kaniakakpupu, and in the mission add, besides Malama Kaniakakpupu, and the Ili of Luakaha?
Yes. I just, there's a lot of wonderful ideas coming, and I think the name's going to come. Just by, as the group is doing stuff, the name will appear and you folks will decide that this is what we want. Might not be the time to really put a finger on what you want right now, but I think it'll come.
Perhaps we can sit and think about that a little bit more.
Yeah. I think there's something that kind of relates to what Mel said, is about maybe don't go putting too much energy into the research right now, because the whole scope of the project really changed once people cleared just little bits of the bamboo. And so our perception of what Kaniakakpupu is changes as we do the work. So maybe we have a lot of energy as a result of coming together. We probably need to put that to work and then evolve the long-term plan as our relationship to the place grows.
So,
can we agree then, subject to change? Yeah, later. Malama Kaniakakpupu. Subject to modifications, even in our mission can be also Malama Kaniakakpupu and the Ili of Luakaha. All of that subject to change at some future time. Because when we put that part down, it sort of falls out naturally what we can do and what we maybe don't want to do because it falls outside of what we just said. So, and Mel, I'm mindful of what Mel is saying, because actually Mel said that the last time that we met, that he flew in because he needed to do something besides have a discussion. We've been kind of like really doing a lot of discussion, and we want to move into a place where we actually do some action. So the other reason for us coming here today was to look at putting together an action plan, which I'm not sure we can do right now. But what has been suggested is that there are committees that people could attach themselves to, depending on what it is that you want to do, where you want to put your energy. All of that falling under Malama Kaniakakpupu. all of it, and in the ili of Luakaha.
Yeah, we have been having some previous meetings, and we have been kicking around models of what our mission purpose should be, and what kind of organizational structure that we should have. If you folks would like to know some of the ideas that have been kicked around, indeed, one of those things is to establish committees where people have their expertise, their kuleana, and get these committees going, that we may get organized. The other thing that's happening is that, again, we have been in discussion with DLNR, and part of the deal was we thought that Don Hibbard was supposed to be here today to talk about conferring a stewardship organization status upon the people here. We do need to get organized. Another concept that was kicked around was actually a structure with a board of directors, a hired curator, and an organization of volunteers and support. And that also is one of the considerations. But in terms of structure, I think we've come to the conclusion that a structure can come later. We need to form the groups. We need to get the work done.
Can we, in agreement, I mean, people signed, but I don't know why you signed. What I feel is that at least among the people who are here today, we can at least form this hui, right? Of the different, I mean, if each of you are signing for yourself, and then within that, like I can say, I'm active with the Ahupua'a Action Line, so it's obvious from what I've said that we would do whatever we can to define the Ahupua'a concept. Other people botanists. So each person who's signed on would kind of look at what your whole
Do their thing.
yeah, so the hui is a collection of what everybody brings, and then from that we can get to the structure.
I'm not a botanist.
I mean, but your sensitivity to that.
I will. I haven't signed it, but I will sign it.
Yeah.
Because my interest is that Hawaii, as a whole, makes up 1% of the landmass of the United States. We suffer over 30% of the endangered species. Whatever is left should be protected.
But
at all costs.
I guess just to get some action and say we have results was just.
Well, I just thought that everybody should know that. Like some people don't like saving tree snails, or some people think that the Ohialehua is not as important as something else, but they're all important.
We have expertise, and mine is I can carry stuff. I can cut the grass, I can do labor. And that's the kind of thing we're asking. What is it that you can bring? What do you bring to the table? And it's fine.
Hana. This so happens, there's about 4 people from the Friends of Nuuanu here. We are meeting, our group is meeting Wednesday, isn't that right? I think we can, in our meeting on Wednesday, report back that this is happening and see if we can't get our group to formally say that, yeah, we want to play, we want to be part of this in whatever format or structure that it begins to take place.
What I was just trying to do to make sure there's no misunderstanding. Nobody has the final plan. There are many visions. But can we agree that this list is like the charter group for the hui, Malama, Kaniakakpupu, or whatever?
This will be the stewardship organization that can receive...
The starting group.
We can receive the recognition from DLNR so that we have the right to take down the trees in the wall, that we can restore the place if it's so deemed, that we have the right. Technically right now, we can't even clear the weeds. It's a jurisdictional issue between DLNR and forestry. If we have a stewardship organization, we will be allowed to do that.
We have a group. Somebody's going to give us $30,000 more. We're going to be able to buy all kinds of tools and whatever it is we need, set up a little structure for whoever is going to be here regularly. I'm just saying these things because that was the whole purpose of actually getting a name, forming a hui, so we can move on other things.
Do you think OHA might absorb this?
I don't think OHA really gives a rip about us at this moment. Maybe
you got their own,
next year.
you got your own trouble.
There are other people.
I'm just trying to find a transfer government entity that DLNR could sign off and.
As long as we agree among ourselves of what we are gathered here today for, everyone else can be invited, but they would have to abide by the collective vision that we put forward today. That's the purpose of today's meeting, right?
Because we have been in discussion with DLNR. DLNR has responded favorably that they would be willing to change the status of this whole ili of Luakaha to historic preservation. They are in favor of that. And they do not want to spend 1 red cent on this. They are in favor of a stewardship organization assuming responsibility for the whole thing.
So it's not that we expect them to give us anything. What it is we want for them to not stand in our way.
Right.
Basically, we have work to do, and we don't want them to
Don
block
Hibbert,
us.
You still may have to.
not in so many words, but he said, "You guys do work on here. I don't see any. Just do it."
No,
Basically, it's basically
not
what he
even
said.
a permit process, because technically that's what we're supposed to do now. But yes, that's what Don Hibbert said. He says, you guys do it, I don't want to see it, I don't want to hear about it, do it. Okay? But that's really not technically legal, and they are looking for stewards. But if we, one of the conditions we're asking for stewardship is we have the right to do all that stuff without asking their permission, without getting their permits, and without asking 3 divisions for the right to do it.
Might have to have a master plan, however.
But we can come up with that.
In place that
So-
they approve before they will.
And then you can.
Right.
We want them to help us, but we shouldn't think that we cannot do something without them. We want them to help us.
If, for example, Baron were to take this list, you type it up with all your names on it, right? And you were to go to Don Hibbert and say, look, on this day, these people signed on, and these are some of the things we'd like to start serious discussions on. Would anybody object to your name being on the list? That's all I'm saying, because from there, we put DLNR on notice. There is a group that has agreed. Live bodies. You all signed on, free will, and said whatever way. We don't have the final plan, but it's the start.
But you are the stewards
of
this aina.
I just wanted to say one thing about our experience with Pu'ukola Heiau is that because it's a historic reserve area, there isn't much we can do with the heiau without getting the archaeologists involved. You cannot even pick up a rock to move a rock. I'm just saying there's some, because you fall in that category, there is some guidelines that you need to follow.
For example, if you get on the National Historic Register, then that makes limitations to changes that you can make.
There is already, this place is on
Well, this is, but I'm talking about the larger area.
Not really. You can actually destroy a National Register site. Putting the site on the
National
National Register does not provide protection.
It doesn't provide protection, but it means that when you make changes, then Don Hibbert and the State Historic Preservation want to be involved, and that's probably okay, but you have to recognize it does change your
status. It kicks in if what you want to do, if what's on the register is a structure that has integrity of some sort, like a house, and you want to renovate that house, then yes. I came out here working on a site in Texas, for example, that was on the National Register. And this last year, the site was destroyed. And because a developer decided he purchased the land, it now is his, and it doesn't provide any protection if what you want to do is remove it. If what you want to do is renovate it in some way, then there are laws that kick in.
But if you look at this building, a lot of people notice that the issue of clearing the weeds back, because that appears to be one thing needs to be done right away. You don't want people just going in there ripping the weeds out. You wanted someone who knows what's going on, so that the volunteers will do the right thing for the building. That's all we've agreed to do, is that we will act in a responsible way. And then if we have to get permits, then that's what we have to do, get a botanist or whatever. Archaeologists to direct the work. But I think that's all we want, right? I mean, to be able to do something without filling out 10 forms. And I think Don Hibbert said, if we read him correctly, that he would look the other way. Meaning that, not to violate, but if we have an archaeologist like Susan in the group who would direct the work, I think he would look the other way and say, Susan.
He did look the other way while we were out here the last 2 summers cutting vegetation. That's true.
So not only that, but concerning the walls and stuff, if nothing's done, they're all going to be. It's going to be one pile of rocks.
That's right.
And so you really can't hurt that.
Right. Too much.
No.
I think one of the practical considerations I want to kind of come to an agreement about, and so everybody understands how we can go about clearing, is we need to have an idea. Can we just cut? Is there any problem with cutting bamboo? You know, it seems like bamboo is something we can cut. And then there's other trees that are in here. You know, we might want to cut. I know.
But see,
I think Mel mentioned cutting even some of the big trees. But
there's koa here too. They planted, and there's some native plants.
Yeah, so that's what I
maybe what we need is a kind of plan. Mel, and one of the things that we were looking at, I think what Mel had in mind was to take care of primarily the buildings first. So there would be like a team to look at planning how that would be done. There would be a team for planning how the grounds would be done, which is something different because you need to cut back to see what the features are underneath the grass. So that would be like another team, and then there could be others raised according to what people's interest is. But I think for right now, starting a team to look at laying out a plan for taking care of that building so we don't all go in there and make it fall down is really important. And I would think that Susan and Mel and maybe Jim and whoever else is interested should actually sit down and look at what can be done. Otherwise, what we'll have is a bunch of people going up individually and independently doing different things without the rest of us knowing, you know, well, what's the plan?
I think we need to pick a day that we're going to say we're going to come clear the house, design, come up with a plan of what we're going to clear and how we're going to go about clearing it, where we're going to put the stuff that we clear, and then have people come out and do it.
And we
go
need
do it.
somebody who knows where we need to clear, so that people just don't come up over here and just arbitrarily pick some area and just chop all the bushes down. And you know, maybe we should have, maybe we shouldn't have. You know,
not only where we clear, but where do we put the debris?
I think we also need to have.
So we'll be contacting everybody's name that's on that list to come help clear it.
We also need to have a team that will look at gathering tools, because some of these things you actually need some tools. You need ladders, you need whatever you need, I don't know. And then so one group can be responsible for just gathering that stuff, and then we have to figure out where we're going to put it. So, you know, that's another thing. But there's a lot of stuff
I think today, since you have brought up the different groups, the committees in this organization, today we should each pick something that we're going to do, and within our groups are designated what we're going to do. Like you said, some people will come and look at the groundwork, some people would look at where they're going to pull, where they're going to chop down trees, gather supplies. I think today everybody should individually pick something that they're going to do, and in that group that of whoever chose that, you work together with.
Let's write it on the list.
Write it on the list.
Supplies.
Yes.
I'm serious. Supplies. Put me down there. I'll look for supplies if somebody tells me what those are.
And it was suggested in the past, if we're ever going to cut these big trees down, slab them and you can use them to make roof beams and stuff to cover the building. So don't just cut them and throw them away. Look at a bigger plan. Huh?
What's the name of that committee? What's your name?
Put the roof. Put the roof on top. The roof, because you got to cover it. You know.
Everybody should go over to where Jim is and put down their committee.
I know, that's one of the things I think we should look at, a road, to bring stuff in. Find an access road.
We also are in the process of setting up a 501c. It would be nice to have a fundraising committee to hit up the private organizations out there, you know, Bank of Hawaii, those guys.
Maybe we could have an umbrella, 501c3. Somebody already starting there, and we don't need, right?
The other thing,
you get one already, okay.
If anybody has contacts with the Hawaiian Studies program, I think an ethnobotanist from the Hawaiian Studies program would really help our efforts in guiding some of the things we do around here.
I know an ethnobotanist. I'll call.
So, we have an organization. We have stewards.
If people don't put down any committee, put labor.
Yeah, let's
Carry.
let's make a day right now since we're all here.
Okay, let's get a date for people.
Let's get a date for the next time we report back and
Susan,
bring work clothes and tools next time.
that's the thing. What tools? Jim?
Do we need people's email address? I don't know if everybody put
Yeah, if everybody's on email, please go put your email address.
We have an email group for Kaniakakpupu.
That's That's right, we'll just sign you on. Susan, just in terms of picking a date, they want to know what's the date, but also if people want to bring tools, what tools? What do people bring?
Okay, if we're going to focus on the house, mostly what we need are like limb loppers, you know, big
Round up.
Cutters. Cutters.
Yeah, bread cutters.
Yeah. Okay, cutters.
Maybe some weed whackers.
And some, you know, like a weed whacker, that sort of thing.
Putting their job tags.
Just
email.
Basically hand tools. We're basically looking at hand tools. And I'd say gloves and stuff, we want to be able to like pull a lot of the fur.
Okay, Cooney and Patsy.
Sure.
Okay. And Clarence.
This is to deal with the state and county agencies, the permits and stuff. Some of you don't, some of us, you know, that's our battle. Yeah, I mean, we do that, so we're going to be doing it.
Yeah, Steve, you would be
But
so
Randy
good.
should be with us too, because you know
And then in terms of other equipment for clearing the house,
We're
we're
not
going to
scared
need
then.
large tarps to be able to haul all the stuff that we cut, at least, you know, off the site.
Susan, I have a
as far as-
question. I have a steel building that's on a trailer out in Kaniakakpupu, and I'm just wondering, would it make any sense to build a structure around, outside, and over this thing?
There, a few years ago,
First, I mean temporarily.
yeah, a few years ago, the
To
suggestion
preserve it.
was made to build a wood, you know, a roof structure up over the house and do it in the same style as the original roof, which was a hip roof. And the only reason it didn't go anywhere, I think, was nobody had the money to do
Well, I
that.
have a steel building. I think it's 60 by 60. I don't know how big that is, but no, really, it's in pieces. It's a really nice building on a trailer I was going to erect out there.
You could haul it up, piece by piece.
We could bring it up here. We could get it. I could get people to assemble it. I mean, the iron workers would probably volunteer to do that. If that's a good idea. I don't know if it's a good idea.
No, one of the
building
goals
because it's doing nothing.
for Susan is to find where the entry might have been, because that would be a good idea, to find a way to get a road in here, to bring in equipment or whatever, all stuff, you know, where you could set up something. Because eventually you'd want even a caretaker trolley or something, right? So that's the kind of stuff that we need to talk to
So that's like
the
midway
DLNR,
and
'cause you need
getting towards the
access
long-term
rights.
goal.
Well, anyway, I got a thing to cover it if that would help to preserve the inside. You know, maybe a
It
freestanding
would be the
steel
sort of thing
building.
that we would have to have a permit from DNLR to put this structure up.
Yeah, I'm sure, but under the circumstances.
We'll just assume we'll get it.
So we will proceed with DLNR. We will tell them that we have a stewardship organization and we do want to change the status of this place to historic preserve.
And we want to start to enable people to start working.
And this place means all of
wherever
this.
we
We're
define,
talking with the whole Ely. We're starting with the whole Ely. 2,100 acres except the reservoirs. We do not want the reservoirs. They're leaking.
Well, I think we're going
They're
to start
dangerous.
at this point and work out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Starting here. Here.
Friends of Nuuanu Reservoir.
That's their
We're
problem.
starting
No,
from right here, right in the
eventually
middle and working outward.
Put the water back in the stream.
Yeah. But right now, there's tremendous liability associated with the reservoirs. The dams are not stable.
But the Board of Water Supply wants to get rid of it.
And they will help us, and
And
we'll
they'll
ask
help
them
us.
for money.
And we tell them the way the water in the reservoirs go is to the Loi over here. So, you know, we should work that link, and that's why I said the government side is state and county, but all that can come in the larger plan. That's when we're going to need permits and all that.
Since I think Steve should work on the agency kind
We're
committee.
already lining them up anyway. But the thing was needing this group to say we're acting in concert with the desires of the group, you know, collectively. So
Email address.
Good.
Where are people writing down what they're running?
Whatever, probably in the last time.
main thing is, if you have email, if you put it down, we can put you on the group, because some of us have been communicating that way. If you don't have email,
Is the email gonna come through with the Malama so that we know?
The email is
I'm
called
picky on my-
Kaniakakpupu
it's called Kaniakakpupu. You'll
Just make
know.
sure, because I don't open all emails.
Because we have to
Kaniakakpupu
email,
over that
email.
right away.
You'll know it.
For starters on the email, let's think about a name, but that's not an issue. We're going to form a stewardship group. We don't have a name yet. But we have a stewardship group.
We do.
So you say Kaniakakpupu,
It says
this is where we're
Kaniakakpupu.
starting from.
Right, all right.
Okay.
But
So
I would,
can we get another date set?
Yeah, let's get a
I
date
hate to
set
let you,
before
but I gotta
people
go
leave.
pretty soon, but I just want to know when the next date so I can go and tell my people so we can all.
Okay, what is today?
well, are
What?
you, is
2
the
weeks.
goal next to meet but to
Couple
work?
To work.
For the
Yeah,
for
we
the
come
house.
up here, the meeting date is really a date.
What
to
about a regular like second
First Sat-
Saturday, first Saturday, then everybody
Yeah,
can
I think
plan around
I
that?
think yeah, that's what I was suggesting earlier is maybe now. I volunteer
Oh,
over at
Sundays.
other places on the second and third Saturday, so maybe the first or last Saturday.
Oh, Sundays.
Sunday for me doesn't
Sunday
work real good.
afternoon.
But that's just me. No, I can.
Any Sunday?
Sunday afternoon.
Most Sunday afternoons will work for me. Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon.
Okay, Sunday afternoon is fine.
Afternoon is
The
good
rest of
out
us
here,
can come
too.
in
That's
early.
cool, that's fine.
Too hot
Yeah.
then.
Nuuanu,
The
the
rain's
cool height.
usually-
Well, people can come anytime, but the idea was to have some time when people can say, oh, they're going to be there. Yeah.
Right.
Did everybody write
So what's
down
the
what
goal?
we're gonna
So
what
Sunday.
we're
One
gonna
Sunday a
contribute?
month?
Yeah,
To
I mean,
begin with, I think more. Maybe let's have a meeting in a couple of weeks, and then thereafter we can, after we chop down the
Last
initial.
Sunday of this month.
Are there like wish lists?
I don't know. People are supposed to bring their own tools
hand
now.
tools.
Just hand tools.
Yeah.
Second Saturday.
Definite gloves.
Yeah. Hand tools,
Chainsaw.
gloves.
Chainsaw.
And then
Small handsaws.
maybe a big
Next
tarp.
next
so we have
meeting
a
is
tarp.
when?
If you got a chainsaw, that's good.
2 weeks. 2 Sundays from now. What's the
So
date?
that's the first Sunday? No.
This is the second Sunday.
2 Sundays from now, in the afternoon, time.
27, yeah?
What time?
Are we going to be here?
November 1st.
Noon.
Okay, noon.
24th.
September 27th, Sunday. Hand tools. You got a chainsaw or a weed whacker?
That might be October 1st.
Yeah, the
I'm sorry, wait a minute.
September.
The date is 17 today.
Yeah.
And 7 is 24, and 7 is the 30th.
That's
30th? September 30th. Erase you guys. September 30th.
September 30th.
No, she said that's a Saturday. Is it? That's a Saturday. So does September have 31 days, or is it only 30? in
No,
September?
it has 30.
30 days in September.
October 1st.
October what?
October 1st.
It's a Sunday.
Yeah, some of us are going to be
Cola.
Zanakos because Anti-Lehua yam ash is going to be spread on the Holy Mouth. So they had asked us to go up there to perform the ceremony.
Okay.
We won't be flying back into...
A little bit off the subject. On the question about OHA and OHA help whatever. OHA has the mechanism in order to hold lands. Okay. For instance, one of the first piece of land they ever owned was a heiau in Hawaii Kai that Bishop Estate transferred to OHA for OHA's stewardship. And so OHA has been paying for, well, there's some funds that came with it for maintenance, etc., whatever, and then OHA has taken responsibility, etc., whatever. If, in case, this group would like to have an entity other than the Cold State own it, have title, or whatever, jurisdiction, Juliana, whatever, over it, that is a possibility. And if it does happen, you automatically be able to get some funds out of OHA. I don't know how much, but
And you know, that would be a nice test for the new trustees.
I don't know if it's now, but maybe sooner or later, whatever.
Let's see.
But OHA is a state entity anyway.
Yeah.
So they can still contribute funds.
No. Yeah, and they should.
That's the idea going to the OHA board.
But I don't think they can really take care of themselves.
Yeah. He's made enough commitments verbally so that I think we can hold him to it or hang him in the public.
I think we're just about powerless. People just want to hang out and talk story.
I gotta take off pretty soon. So, October 1st.
October 1st, noon. Bring your tools, bring water. If you want to bring lunch or whatever, you should bring it with you.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Now, brother.
Right before, right?
Here comes the ua. Getting a little blessing.
Okay, guys.
There for quadruple, you know.